Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm a little bit upset because a lot of people think we're in a cycle, and I don't understand why we're in a cycle. We're not in a cycle, we're in a bear market, right? We haven't been in a bull cycle since back over here. So when we break this, that's when the cycle starts, right? That's when the cycle starts. Now, if it breaks, you could theoretically say, well, no, the cycle started here, right? Which is okay, which is fine because that's part of the one, two, three, four, and five, right? But to suggest something like, for example, AVAX is in a bull cycle. I was watching Paul Barron Network, and one of the questions was, did AVAX underperform this cycle? Bro, what cycle are you talking about? There's no cycle. We're in a bear market. Look, here's the cycle right here. I'm in a cycle. I'm in a cycle. The cycle ended. The bull cycle ended. Now the bear market starts here. Now we're in a bear market, bear market, bear market, bear market, bear market. What the what cycle are you talking about, bro? What? Explain it to me. The problem with this market is that everyone thinks we're in a cycle when in fact we're in a Bitcoin only cycle. This is Bitcoin only, right? This whole thing right here, yes, you could say is a cycle. And that's where the confusion is, right? But if AVAX, which I'll do a different color, let's do red since it's red, right? If the bear market ended here and we came down and then we came up and now we're kind of doing this, that's exactly what AVAX has done. That does not constitute as a cycle, right? So what happens if Bitcoin then goes, if Bitcoin already did its cycle, right? Bitcoin's already um, it's already, let's say it's over and the cycle is over. Well, then that means for most people, oh well, we're barely going into a bear market. No, we've been in a bear market for AVAX for this whole time, right? So you would have like a rise, a crash, a retrace, reaccumulation. We go sideways. During the sideways process, that's when that's when we could see Bitcoin going into a mid-cycle correction. Not a full-blown bear market like this, maybe just a mid-cycle correction, right? If this is a super cycle, you can see, like this one here, we had a mid-cycle correction and then we continued. Where this one's just kind of been more organic. It's been, right, you've had more waves, but you had more consolidations in here. Kind of like back over here, where if you look at this, right, you're building a base, you're building a base, you're building a base, right? Building a little bit more, and then what happens? You go parabolic, right? So could we see something like that? You're building a base, you're building a base, you're building a base, you're building a base, right? Now let's see if this base could be something more like that. And now we have, look, the more the more Bitcoin can go sideways, the more energy it conserves, the more it's able to have the endurance needed for something bigger than we think, right? Because it's been a long time, right? I mean, Bitcoin's been going up since the beginning of 23. So all of 23, all of 24, all of 25. That's 3 years. Up, 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 up. But what has been going on since up, right? We've been chilling, right? Versus something like back over here where you're like you're rampaging to the upside and then you stall out for a long time. You're rampaging for the upside and it was just too damn much, a little bit push to the high and then bear market, right? Same, like over here, you had a base, you broke out, base, went parabolic, went extreme, and then that's when you had the bear market. There's no extreme, there's no extremities. Wait, there's no extremes here. I don't see anything up here, right? I don't see anything like this or anything like this, right? So when we look at AVAX, and I'm using that because that's a basic altcoin, right? It's something that everybody knows. And you could see the difference here. This is why I think the bears are wrong, and I think the bulls are also wrong. I think this is a mix. I think we've never seen a cycle like this ever. This is kind of like, this is the same thing as Bitcoin going into a cycle, and then XRP getting a lawsuit, right? Remember, let me actually do this. Look at XRP, right? This is the same thing. This is like AVAX being like right in here. That's what it's like. So there's no cycle, right? This means that we're closer to the end of the bear market than we are to the end of a bull market, right? Because if nobody can figure out if this is a real bull market or a bear market, then that means something else is going on, right? So in my XRP, for example, well, let me go back to XRP, but real quick, back to AVAX, you could see that this is not a cycle, right? This altcoin has not participated in a bull market. Why? Because look what it's done since 2021. It's been rampaging. That it started off, let's say 30 to $100 million. And it went all the way, this is the market cap, it went all the way up to $34 billion market cap. Percentage wise, that is major. Okay, that's a 40,000% move. AVAX last cycle went up 40,000%. So how the hell is it going to go up even a fraction of that without Bitcoin being in a continuation of its bull market? It's really difficult, right? That's why Bitcoin, I think this bull market for Bitcoin has been the most organic, because it builds a base, it breaks out, it builds another base, it breaks out. It's building structure to support these legs, right? It's building structure to support the legs. So now we're just chilling up here and we're going sideways again. And it looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves. You got bearish divergence. You have the MACD rolling over. This could look like it could, Bitcoin's, again, 2023, 2024, 2025. It's given every opportunity, but 40,000% is way too much. And Bitcoin doesn't care, right? So that's like you going from, Texas to California. You're on a bicycle. Like, dude, you're gonna be tired as hell. All right. So that's what this was like. Texas to California on a bicycle through the desert in the summer. Super hot. You're gonna die. Right? So you need time to rest. I'm resting. I'm tired. I'm resting. I'm exhausted. Right? So all of this, how could that be treated as the same cycle Bitcoin is in? It can't be. Right? So if Bitcoin is just beginning its bear market, for example, let's just say, well, that means that's a continuation of the bear market that this has been in. Right? So that could equal two things. One, we're closer to the end of this, right? Because you see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That could be an A. You come up here, that could be a B. And then you kind of got this little move here. And we're working our way down in 5 waves. That could be a C. Maybe not so dramatic, right? Maybe it's not so dramatic, but there's your C. So A, B, C, right? And Bitcoin, but how do you explain Bitcoin? What, how does that make sense? And that's what makes it challenging, right? So I don't think that if AVAX is continuing the bear market, that to me means we're closer to the end than we were to the beginning of the bear market, right? So we've already went all this direction through time, right? Which was December 2021. So you have December 22, December 23, December 24, December 25. That's 4 years. We've been going sideways for 4 years on the chart of AVAX. And if you look at it, it looks like a solid base. Why am I talking about AVAX? Well, because I don't know. It's just you could pick any chart, really. Any altcoin that hasn't, I mean, you could look at Cardano. It's the same thing. It's the same, basically, right? So let's take a zone, because this is a very big zone here, right? And this is what Ethereum has done. That's a whole other story, right? Look, this, you when you have a bull cycle, you hit the top of the range, you hit the bottom of the range, you come back to the top of the range, right? The crash, the retrace, and then you come down into reaccumulation. Maybe you go sideways a little bit inside reaccumulation, and then you break out. And that's what I still think is playing out here. But how? But the Bitcoin guys or the cycle guys are like, well, how can that happen if we're in a bear market? If Bitcoin's going in a bear market, well, then it may be not going into a bear market. What if it's not? What if it's going into a mid-cycle correction? Right? Because Bitcoin has been going up organically. It's been going up nicely. It's been going up methodically, right? Look at all the ranges. It hasn't gone. Look at the difference here. We're going straight up like a rocket ship. This is like taking its time, coming back up, taking its time, coming back up, taking its time, building in the structure, building in the support, building in the support beams, right? Those big solid steel support beams that were supposed to hold the World Trade Center but evaporated from a aluminum tube. Those types of metal beams, they're supposed to be strong, right? So you could see that this is kind of getting weaker in here, right? It just because you're going sideways for a while, you're going sideways for a while, but look at this sideways. It's a little bit less in time, and this one is too, but we're still in it. So what I would say is, if we break out, if we break down, then what we could do, guys, is just say that this whole thing is one range here, and you could theoretically say that, right? You could say we're kind of sitting on the top of the range. So I would just say this is our range, and if we had to come back down, well, guess what? We're still supporting on the top of this range that we built for a long time. Remember when back over here, we were in this son of a gun for a long time. And that was a nice flag right there, right? A, B, C, right? Or you could say A, B, C, D, W, X, Y, X, Z, right? It was a triple correction. It was a range. And what a range allows Bitcoin to do is it allows the moving averages to catch up. It allows the oscillators to cool down, and it allows the market to get used to the price that it's trading at, right? So the longer Bitcoin can trade above 100,000, the more likely it is that people will accept that price as, not necessarily a low, but the price, a standard Bitcoin price, and be okay with accumulating that. Why are people okay accumulating? Because look how methodical it's been going up. This was honestly the biggest leg right here, right? So if it's kind of interesting, you have two If you look at it like you're building Legos, you have two supports here, and then you have a beam or you have an extension, and then you have two supports here at the top. So that's kind of funny, right? It's kind of funny. So what would be next? What would be the next if we were looking at it like a children's lesson the teacher is taking, right? Or giving what would be the next move? You got two squiggles, an extension, two squiggles. What comes next? Well, it would be the extension, right? It would be the extension. Two squiggles, extension. Two squiggles, extension, right? I mean, it's just, is that what's going to happen? I mean, this is not financial advice, obviously, but it just shows you that the market is, going to do what the market is going to do. But what I would say to you is that the way that this came up, if we were to come down, what that means to me is, because here's the problem. Look at this. I will explain it really very well right here. Look, you went straight up, okay? You went straight up. You didn't build any bases in here. You didn't build any concrete blocks or steel blocks or whatever you want to call it. So what happened was when you came down, you had a massive crash, just like over here. You went straight up and you had a big crash, right? And then you finally were able to come back and then build a support structure. And that support structure, we built upon that, and that gave us our extension. But that extension was too extended, and it resulted in a crash. But this time is different. Why? Because this time we have support structure. So let me just explain. If this is the end of the bull market for Bitcoin, and we're entering a bear market, this bear market should be very easy. It should be simple. It should be easy. It should be quick. It should be fast. It should be not a problem at all. Why isn't it a problem? Because we didn't go straight up. So when you come back down, it's like falling through a floor. Versus coming down, you're going to chill a little bit. You're going to find support. You're going to get a bounce. Right? Hell, we might even, I'm going to get rid of this one and I'm going to extend this out like that. That might all be, we get right there. That's it. That's all we might get. And I think that's a very big possibility. Why? Because if you extend it out further, guess what? That's the all-time high. Why would we fall back below the all-time high? Look at this one over here. Here's the all-time high right there. We broke out. We built no bases. We slammed to the high. We came all the way to the low, and we held, essentially, the all-time high. Okay, so where's the all-time high? Right there. So if we're going to have a bear market, to me, we're going to hold support here. Why would we hold support? Because we have a lot of support on the way up, and we have two tops here, not just one. Remember, this was just one little top, one little teeny peak. Off a parabolic move, guys, and we held the low. We held that low. This one, we have two peaks, double the support. And not only that, we have a triple support that gave us a 6-month base. How long is that? That's March to November. What is that? That's like 9 months right there? Like 8 or 9 months, guys. We have it. So, I mean, come on, think about that. We have 2 points right here. We have an 8 to 9 month base right there. So we have strong support. Very strong. So if we come back down, everyone's saying, oh, we're going into a bear market. The bear market is here. It could be a mid-cycle correction. So we have a cycle. We have a mid-cycle. We chill out a little while, and then we continue, and this whole thing is a super cycle. Why would it be like that? Why wouldn't we just have a regular bear market? What's my reasoning? Well, let's go back to AVAX, guys. Let's go back to AVAX. Why not? Because this is why. Because the altcoins haven't done anything. You can't we can't finish the season without some kind of altcoin something, right? And so if Bitcoin is going to, chill out a little while, and then that means AVAX is too, right? Then what? Then we have an A, B, C. Bitcoin's done correcting, right? Actually, let me put both of them in the screen here, right? So you have the 21 top, the 21 top. Then you come down, then you come down. Bitcoin's been going into a cycle, but AVAX just went into a retrace. And now it's coming back down into reaccumulation. But while Bitcoin is still up here chilling at 110, guys, I don't think we're going into a full-fledged bear market. I do think Bitcoin needs a correction. I do think Bitcoin needs to build a bigger base because you're getting a little extended and you're starting to create some type of wedge in here. See how it's starting to get wedgy? We don't want it to get wedgy because wedgies break down, right? Wedgies break down. So we don't want it to be, we don't want that, right? So, but I think that's what's going to happen. I think we will break down for Bitcoin, right? At some point. Now, let me extend this. We might not right so quickly. This might, it depends what happens in here because we do have a three-way move. It's right here. It's not bad at all looking, right? You got a three-way move down. You got a three-way move up. So this could be 1, 2, 3 waves down. And what that means is you have this move up and you have a three-way pullback, right? Maybe a little bit further down. We'll see what happens in here, right? And what that could do is that could give us another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave extension. And that 5-wave extension can really accelerate the altcoins, even if it does not, even if it comes down and it goes into a retrace. That's when we could see potentially Bitcoin dominance. Where the hell is it at? Bitcoin dominance. Oh, I was way off. That's why. I was way over here. Okay. So we could see Bitcoin dominance start to come down, right? So if it comes up a little bit during that crash, during that sort of consolidation we were just looking at, and then it works its way down, and that's when you can see AVAX breaking out, right? I'm just using AVAX as an example. So let's not use, well, real quick. Now you could see you have a three-way move. So you have an impulse, a 40,000% move requires a lot more time. So everyone's like, well, why didn't the altcoins go into a bull run when Bitcoin went into a bull run? Well, it could be because AVAX went up 40,000%. That's why we didn't see THETA go into a bull run, because THETA went up like 60,000%. Right? So it's going to take longer for it to correct. But Litecoin has been correcting this whole damn time. But Litecoin isn't sexy to investors. Why? Because there's nothing really there for Litecoin. It's like it's a cool thing. It's sound money. It's good money. It's sound money. It's a legit blockchain, but there's really nothing there to build on like an XRP ledger or something exciting like THETA or Avalanche or Ethereum. There's nothing really to build on it. Like, what do you really build on Litecoin? I don't know. So, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that, it's still going against the dollar, right? You got a low, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low. We've been putting in higher lows since 2019, more than any other coin, really. But look at Litecoin. You could say, oh, well, the bear market is here. So what about Litecoin then? Because Litecoin, the bear market started back in 2018. We've been in a bear market, bear market, bear market, bear market, bear market, bear market, bear market. We haven't, where's the cycle? There's no cycle. There's no cycle. Bitcoin went into cycle. So what's the answer then? Well, what the hell's the answer? If Bitcoin looks like it's at the end of the cycle and Litecoin looks like it's, starting at the beginning of its bear cycle, then what the hell? right? That's the problem, right? That's why I'm not so quick to say, oh yeah, sell everything and get out. I'm more in the camp like, let's wait. Why am I waiting? Because this looks bullish to me. Why does it look bullish? Because look at it. You got an impulse, you got a three-way move down, you got a three-way move up, and it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe you get 5. I'm not saying the low is in. In fact, I would argue that it's probably not in. I would imagine that if you looked at BCB's video today, he posted something like this where he believes that, you have this liquidation, you chill out, you hit the low. Liquidation, you chill out and you continue, right? Liquidation, you consolidate and then you hit the low. That's what I think is going to happen. We might hit the low. Why? Because look at the wick, right? You got this big wick down here. What do we talk about? What did we talk about? 50% of the wick that's roughly where we should probably go. So if we come up and hit the high and then we come down and finish it, what would that be? That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 50% wick. That could be the bottom. That could be the bear market cycle low for the altcoins, while simultaneously being, potentially the end of the bull market for Bitcoin, right? So, but then where does the time go? How does these altcoins mature in value if Bitcoin's already toast? Well, that's why you're probably looking at a mid-cycle correction as opposed to a full-fledged bear market. The only reason Bitcoin would go in a full-fledged bull market is if Bitcoin went parabolic. All right? Bitcoin went parabolic here, resulted in a bear market. Bitcoin went parabolic here. But there's no parabolicness to it. These rallies are really built strongly, right? Because you have strong bases here. You got this extension here, but you built a solid base right at the all-time high, and then you broke out of it. You had a three-wave pullback, and we back-tested it, and we held it, and then we continued higher, and now we have a little three-way pullback here, which could result in a continuation, or it could be 3 down, 3 up, and then maybe 3 back down, and then another continuation. And that's like an A, B, C. It's a running flat, and it builds a bigger base. So you have a base, a base, a base, a base. Tell me what bull market Bitcoin has built so many bases. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. We have 4 solid bases, guys. That's kind of like what we had over here. We had 4 solid bases that led into something insane, right? So we haven't had anything insane for Bitcoin yet. Remember, we're still looking at high interest rates, quantitative tightening. We haven't even begun quantitative easing or really low rates, right? So the issue also could be, the dollar gets a bounce, right? So anyways, hit the like button. I think this video really deserves it because, when you do a video, you got to something's got to spark for you. And I was just watching the Paul Barron Network. It was called Crypto Crash Not Over, Technical Analysis with Data Dash. And that doesn't look like Data Dash to me. I remember Data Dash was Nicholas Merton. I don't know who that is. But anyway, oh, you know what? I see his hat. It's actually got the same logo, so maybe they work together. But basically, they were saying, oh, did AVAX underperform this cycle so far? And I didn't even watch it. I paused the video because I was like, seriously? So anyways, I digress. But look, now you could say, oh, well, give me more proof. I want more proof. Okay, well, what about Ethereum? Ethereum also has not been in a cycle yet. Ethereum is right at the all-time high, guys. And Ethereum has created what? Ethereum has created a base. Look at the size of this base. Look at the size of how massive that is, right? We've been going sideways, 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 basically the whole time. So how can you say that's a cycle? It's not. It's not a cycle. It's not a cycle. This is a bear market. This is a bear market, right? But now, since we broke above the bull market support band, right? What to me constitutes as a bull market is one, you're close, relatively close to the all-time high, and also the Fibonacci levels, right? Let's put that there, and then we're gonna put this. If I could get rid of it, no, stop that. We're gonna put this right there and right there, and you could see right here we broke above the 618. We tested it. And then we went all the way up to the 1. And then we had a three-way pullback off the bull market support band right in between the 702 and the 786. You can't make this up. Oh my God, look at that. Right between the 702 and the 786. Right at the bull market support band, resting on support, 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 support. Right? Support, support. So it's like an OMG moment, like OMG, right? So do you think we're just gonna go into a bear market and we're just gonna how can I don't understand it. I just can't get on the bear side. The only reason I'm bearish is because I know Bitcoin needs I know Bitcoin looks like it needs, Bitcoin's been going up for 3 years. But again, it's been building solid bases, so that's what has extended the time out because it hasn't went parabolic, right? But look what Ethereum did. Ethereum went parabolic right here. That's the problem, right? We went from way down here, we shot all the way up very quickly. That's why I think we could use a correction, right? We could use a correction. What kind of a correction? Well, this could be 3 down. Maybe we come up and get 3 up, and then we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down, and then it becomes a running flat, and then it allows the bull market support band to flatten out. It allows it to catch up. And then what it does is it builds a base on top, just like Bitcoin built a base on top, right? And then we continue higher. You know where I think Bitcoin is, or Ethereum is? It's right here, right? It's right, hold on a minute. Let me make this like there. So I think we're right here. This is where I think we are for Ethereum, guys. Okay? So I think Ethereum is going to, this took 8 months, okay? This took 8 or 9 months. We'll say 6 to 9 months. That's a long time. That's a half a year. That's more than a half a year. But that half a year was necessary to build the support structure we need, right? It's all about support. People know about charge, support and resistance, support. No. But really it is. It's about support. Like when people talk about TA, they really miss the key fundamentals of what TA is. Right? The base, the TA in a nutshell is support. That's all it is. It's how can the price be supported? The only way the price goes up is if you have support, is if you have buying power and you have buyers that will hold the line. That's the only way, right? So why would people stop buying crypto? I don't think they would, unless they're convinced we're in a bear market, and then those people sell, and then they get screwed, and then we have another little crash, and then they say, see, I told you so, and then it goes to the moon, and they go, oh man, I missed it. So that's usually kind of how it plays out. So what I would imagine here is that, I won't lie though, this looks bearish to me. It looks like a rising wedge. So if we can come down and reset that a little bit, and this also kind of flags out in here. And then once we get a retrace or maybe another hit to the high, and then you have 1, 2, 3 drives to the high, we'll call it. That would mean, okay, now we're really in a bear market because now we have this flat here. We could say 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and then we come up and hit 5. We get triple divergence, right? that could constitute as a bear market, and that would make it look like a finished move, you know, another high, right? An extended high, and that would be a quite a bit of an extended high. You know, that's coming down here at 80,000 all the way up to 180,000. From here to here is $100,000 move. That's a major move, right? So if we had something like that, that's all it would take for Ethereum to go up and finish, you know, somewhere around 10,000. And then that's when the bear market starts for Ethereum. Why would it be so quickly? Because it went parabolic. Why did it go parabolic? Because Ethereum is like an altcoin. It shoots up really dramatically, like an altcoin would, right? Where Bitcoin is a bigger market cap, it moves up more methodically. So that's what I think's playing out here. I think. So let me just explain it one more. I think Ethereum is going to break out. Let me say that again. I think this is an impulse. We have 3 down, we have 3 up, and we have 3 back down. 3, 3, 3, WXY running flat. We have an impulse. We're back to the all-time highs, right? Let's flag out a little bit here. As we flag out, that's when we want to see Bitcoin. Maybe we have 3 waves, right? You could see very small. We have 3 waves there. So it could be complex. We don't know that. So maybe 3 up and then maybe 3 back down, or 5, something bigger. And then once we're done, then we break out. Then we break out, and then it's over. And then that is where I think is going to happen. That's how I see it. I just don't think the bear market is here. It doesn't have that finishing look. And then if you want even more proof, let's look at XRP. Now we're at the grand finale here. So XRP, I mean, there's no other chart on the planet that looks like XRP. Why? Because it looks insane. I mean, look at it. And, well, first of all, let's go back over here. Let's get rid of that. And let's, you know what? Let's do this. So you could see when we look at Bitcoin and XRP side by side, a little bit of a similarity here as far as where we are, right? So you can see that 3-wave move there. So, and let's take a line and put it, first let me put this one here. It's like right in the middle there, and then boom, right in the middle. So look at that. I mean, look at that. To me, that looks great, right? And honestly, this looks more bullish than this. Why? Because you have this major base right here. Look, and this is another thing too. Look how long XRP has building a base. It's built this base, and then it built a base inside here, right? So it has 2 support centers, right? So if this is your top, you round out your top, you round out, work your way back up to the all-time high, A, B, C, blast off. Work your way back up, A, B, C, expanded flat. Will we get the blast off? I mean, I think it's totally possible. I think there's no reason why we shouldn't think that, except for, you know, if the dollar gets a bounce, we're not looking good. If the stock market stalls out, we're not looking good. You know, if gold keeps going up, we're not looking good. So that's why we have to kind of wait and see. But I don't think there's any reason to run for the hills, right? I do think we will get more downside in here for XRP, right? Let's look at the smaller time frames. So if we look at the daily, you know, this looks a little bearish right in here, where it usually comes up, it tags it, and then it'll come down and finish, and then it'll kind of chill out, and then that's when we can hopefully get going, right? So it doesn't have that finished look. It looks like it needs to finish, hit the high, then hit the low. That would give it a finished look, and then we would have a solid platform here. right? Hit the high, hit the low, hit the high, hit the low, hit the high, hit the low, right? Hit the middle, hit the low again, right? So you're filling in those gaps, you're filling in the spaces necessary, but while maintaining your three-wave shape. You're maintaining that three-wave shape. This shape is bullish, right? Because you have an impulse, but you're correcting to the downside, correcting to the upside, correcting to the downside, all while maintaining your base. So to me, that's bullish. I don't, where's the cycle at? I don't see the cycle. I don't see the cycle. Now, if this comes up and finishes like this, that's the cycle right there. So then you would say the cycle started 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it ended here. But you can't really call it a cycle if we just came back to the top of the range, right? So you have the top of the range, you have the bottom of the range. All we did was go to the top of the range. That's not a cycle, right? So that's why I think people are confused about really what a bull cycle is, what a bear cycle is, right? We've been in a bear cycle this whole time. Ever since 2018, this is all bear market, bear market, bear market, bear market, bear market. This is all the bear market. When does it turn into a bull market? It turns into a bull market when you finally, let's go to the big daddy up here. It goes into a bull market once you really start getting closes above. And that's exactly what we're doing, right? So this could be the beginnings, right? So you could see, once we clear this zone here, there's the close, there's the wick. And that's exactly the range between these two right here, right? So if this can consolidate and then break out, then that's what it looks like to me, right? Otherwise, what we have here is incredibly bearish, which is what? 3 waves down, 3 waves up, and then now that's the bear market, or that this is a continuation of the bear market, and then we get 3 waves back down, and then it becomes a bigger range, and then we go up. And that could totally happen, unfortunately. So that this would be the worst case scenario. If everyone is right and Bitcoin's going into a bear market and the cycle is over for all the altcoins, which is impossible because they haven't even begun. So how can they start if they haven't even begun? But let's say they did, then that means, right, we would have this on the way back down, and then we would go up, right? And that would be devastating. That would basically mean that would take a long time. So that would be somewhere down in this range again, between that 30-cent level and 65-cent. And I just don't see it. I mean, do we really think that? And the only way that could be possible is if something event-wise happened, like something with the Federal Reserve, something with the, Trump and the transition, and maybe it's something breaking in the financial, maybe it's the bond market, maybe it's the dollar, maybe who knows what it is, right? Something that breaks in the financial system, right? Look at 2008. When we had the great financial crisis, everything was about to blow up. And we woke up and you turn the news on, all of a sudden everything was on fire. That could happen again, right? And then the banks will blame Trump's tariffs, right? And I think what's happening, though, what could be the catalyst is the Supreme Court ruling against the tariffs, right? Trump said that this could be the excuse. This could be the kickoff to the major meltdown, which will lead to the exposure of the Fed, which will lead to the transition, right? It's got to go in stages. So what could blow everything up? The Supreme Court. The Supreme Court could say, yeah, your tariffs are unconstitutional. You got to take them off. And then now our country's not raking in the money anymore, billions and billions of dollars. And then the economy goes down the drain. That gives Trump ammunition to say, hey, you guys are the ones that did it, not me. If our country was going bankrupt, our country was going down the drain. If it wasn't for those tariffs, we would have been screwed. So if the Supreme Court says no tariffs, well, Well, that could be something like that. A big liquidation, a big crash, right? And then a second reaccumulation. So it'd be like rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways breakout, as opposed to rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, breakout. So it basically extends it out another third of the way through time, which is painful, right? Especially when all we freaking want is a big moon god candle like one of these candles, right? Let just God, please just lead us into the promised land. Just give us a giant candle to the upside, right? Because remember, we got screwed on the last cycle. Remember, Bitcoin went on a massive cycle right here. So Bitcoin went on a big bull cycle, but look at XRP. It only went into a retrace. So we got screwed there. So don't tell me we're going to get screwed again. I mean, XRP holders, we've got, and we shouldn't be all screwed because we did get a pretty big rally, bigger than most coins would normally get. So hopefully that helps you, or maybe it made it more confusing for you. I think, you know, we're going to do a members video next week. So I'm going to explain to you what I think, or what I would do under option A, and what I would do in option B, and then worst case scenario, what I do in option C. So option A is everything's normal, right? We have this flat here, you know, Bitcoin is going to continue to correct, and then we're going to come and we're going to finish. Pretty simple. In that case, right? Or if this is 3 down, and then it gets a little bit bigger, we go 3 up, and then we have to come down and finish something a lot bigger. Something a lot bigger. And then we chill out, and then we break up. So those, I have no idea who that was. All right. So let's see how it all plays out. I mean, again, I wouldn't be too worried about Bitcoin. Because again, you built these bases that, you know, if we look at the rallies in here, you know, it's definitely different, right? You definitely have these consolidation phases, and these consolidation phases allow the price to continue with its momentum. But it's going to come to a time where you have a counter trend rally. It's not a full bear market like this, but a counter trend rally. So that could be something where we pop the high and then we kind of trend down a little bit, right? While maintaining the all-time high, and then kind of rounding out and then continuing it. That would be more like a mid-cycle correction. And that would also allow the altcoins to finish up their corrections, because when we look at something like XLM, for example, right, that could allow the A, the B, and it'll allow the continuation of the C wave, and along with the base, along with the rally. So that's what it looks like to me. That's my main idea, what I think is going to play out. I think Bitcoin and the alts could turn them down a little bit, right? But here's the tricky part. What if it's finished? What if the correction is finished and we're in November now, right? And that's all we get, and we continue right away. I mean, that could also play out. In that situation, right? I don't think it would, because you know, you're flipping here. I mean, it looks very bearish to me. Bitcoin looks bearish, I'm not going to lie. Because look, you got red, green, red, green, red, green. Anytime you flip red, green, red, green, red, green, red, green, while building a base, that's distribution to me, right? So that means we have to come down. And if we come down, that's actually a good thing for the alts, because that would allow the alts, let's look at ADA. So if we look at ADA, that would allow ADA to finish as well. Because look at ADA. Where's the cycle at? So you're telling me that this was a cycle? That's not a cycle. That's a retrace, right? This is a cycle. That's a cycle. We haven't had anything near anything like that. So how does that make sense? ADA went up like 10, 12,000%. So it needed all of this time to rest, right? If Bitcoin went up 10 or 12,000%, it would also need a long time. Look at XRP. That's why XRP took forever. Because XRP during the 2018 bull cycle, it went from pennies all the way up to 330, right? So again, if we had Bitcoin on the screen here, there we go. So you can see the difference, right? So if Bitcoin kind of chills out a little while and starts to sag back, that would also allow ADA, right? You finish that three-wave move, right? We pull back a little bit, and then what happens is either one, Bitcoin goes into a retrace, and then it continues on to the bear market, or two, Bitcoin goes up for one more high. Both of those scenarios could lead to ADA coming back and having a big hit to the high. Maybe not so much the all-time high, or breaking above the all-time high, but at least a big move up, right? So you would have a little move down here, three-way pullback, then you would round out like this, get back to the top here. But that still doesn't even mean we're in a cycle, right? It just means we're back to the top. Now, ADA would have to flag out and then break out. And that's the only way, that's the only option I see, is something like that. Right? If we're bullish. If we're bearish, then what's going to happen is this is a rising wedge, and you have an A, you have a B, and this is 1, 2, 1, 2, and we're going to come down for a wave C. So basically, this is going to come down like that. And then once okay, but here's the thing. Once it does that, it's over. It's over. Why is it over? Because now we have an impulse, we have an A, we have a B, and now we have a C. And once that C wave is over, we build support, and then we go up into a retrace. But that does not equal another 4-year Bitcoin bear market, right? If Bitcoin is going to go into a 4-year bear market, that's going to be a long time. Let's see here. Where's September 25, September 26. That's like all the way in October of 2029. We'll just put it right there. Right? If it's going to go in a 4-year bear market. So that would be like something like this, and then dead, and then it goes up. That would take 4 years. So yes, I guess it's possible. If you look at it like that, it's not too far away, but that's 4 years. Right there. And that would be your ABC. But I don't think it's going to take that long. I mean, I could be wrong, but now when you look at something like Link, it looks like a bigger problem. It looks like it because you're already at the top here, and you got those highs, you're hitting the high, you're hitting the high, you're hitting the high, right? So you're struggling. So to me, it looks like you have to come down, then go sideways, then go up. So it gives you that shape, that A, B, C shape, and then continue. So to me, we're like 3/4 of the way through the bear market, or we're at the beginning of the end of the cycle. So which one do you think? Let's go to Yeah, like look at flow. I mean, where's the cycle at? This is a bear market, bear market, bear market. There's no bull market. In order for something to be in a cycle, it means that it's in a bull phase. It's not in a bull phase. XRP kind of is because you're in that upper area here. So I think XRP still looks the greatest because you're building a base. You got that three-wave shape. You got that nice extension, and you have an 8-year base supporting you, and you have all of this support right below you. So I think XRP looks the best. And Ethereum does, but Ethereum had this very fast move up, and it hasn't really relaxed. So same thing with SHIB. So if you look at SHIB, it actually looks pretty decent, right? It looks like, to me, that, you have a lot of support in here, right? It's basically, you're sitting on the floor, right? It's like you're just sitting on the floor. So unless we're just going to have a complete meltdown. By the way, if SHIB did that, if SHIB just broke this, I would not even want to be around it. It would instantly go from my favorite meme coin to my least favorite. Instantly. Because it ruined it. Unless it's a liquidity grab, right? If we come down and you sweep the lows. So you have your base, you broke out, you had a three-way pullback, you built a base on the low, but then you stabbed it as a liquidity grab. If this comes back up and then circles around, it could still technically be Wyckoff. So, as far as THETA, we haven't looked at THETA yet, and we got a couple minutes to go. So, even with THETA, right? THETA went up tens of thousands of percentage, so it needs extra, right? So I still think, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, 3-wave up, B, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, potentially 5 for C. So I think we're close, potentially, to the end here, right? So if this can, finish up here, right, and then give us some kind of a signal that we're holding, then what we would look for is a retrace of this high. So basically from the top all the way to the bottom, and we're down here, let's say, and then we come back up in a retrace, right? Because we still have that three-wave shape. So I'm still looking at it like A, B, and C. And I want to see this son of a gun be like a 1 and a 2, which is the most bullish thing you can possibly get, right? Is the most bullish thing if this is a 1, 2. Let me put it on regular scale here. There we go. So that's our 1, that's our 2, our 3, our 4, and our 5. Doesn't look so bad, does it? All right, so now, when I look at something like Monero definitely doesn't look like it's in a bear market. It looks still really bullish, but I think Monero either is going to take the high, or it could be 3, 3, and then it gives us another, like a proper ABC, right? Because you're holding that support, and then we break out. I still really think Monero is a superstar, especially the way it's shaped. I mean, just the way it looks, because it's all, privacy is a big thing, right? So if there's an event that unfolds, I mean, look at the handle, look at the cup and the handle. That's a massive cup and handle right there, and you're you're approaching the highs. So to me, it's more bullish than it is bearish, right? So anyways, let's see how it plays out. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you can hit the like, subscribe, drop a comment, let me know what you think. Remember, not financial advice, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.